All right. Shalom, first and foremost. Call Allah, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Wahak Wadash Rakah. Double honors to the elders over a great millstone who well. Also, Shalom, Wa Barakim to the hopeful elect of Israel. The hopeful elect being those of you reciting the righteous works, fighting and striving into the truth until the very end, and also teaching in the four corners of the earth where, we have been spread. Also, shalom to those of you of the Israelite nation who are here to learn, you know, ultimately about your heritage and your history. And before we get started on the lesson, this message is only out to you so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, so-called Native American Indians, and those of you of the West Indian Islands, the West Indies. You are all, in fact, direct descendants of the Israelites of the Bible, right? And these scriptures are ultimately your heritage, they're your history, right? They're the way that you're going to get back into the knowledge of your own self and understand, what your people were doing in the past and what you need to be doing in the current time, right? To prevail in the future. So this lesson that we're going to get into is going over the fact that um the Most High, God, He chooses the foolish things of this world. He chooses the foolish things. Okay, so we go get to our first scripture, which is 1 Corinthians chapter 1, in verse 27. It's pulled up, so it reads, "But God, or the Most High, hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise." Real quick, we're going to go into the word confound. I Google searched it, and confound means, it says, to cause surprise or confusion in someone, especially by acting against their expectations. And then two, it sort of is the same thing, but I'm gonna read it. It says mix up something with something else so that the individual element becomes difficult to distinguish. That's that confoundation that the Lord, chooses the foolish things, right? What the world deems as foolish. Okay, so the world deems something, just say like this, say you're a big time college athlete ready to be recruited into the majors, like the NFL, the NBA, or the MLB, right? Because that's typical of the world. This athlete has been a standout athlete, and the world looks at him as if he has this promising career ahead of him. And then say he runs into, this truth. And, you know, he puts all of that so-called future that he had within these sports behind and follows on to the truth. In the world, he'll be looked at as foolish. Like this guy, his career was so promising. He had so much ahead of him. He was going to be chasing that fame, right? He's going to be famous. He was going to get that multi-million-dollar contract. He was going to be rich, right? But he turned all that down, right, to follow in pursuit of what his real heritage is, And I say that as a professional athlete. I'm talking about Jake's Israelites, right? Because they use this for these things. But the example is perfect because that guy that gave up, all of that worldly success, the fame, the money, right? It's looked at as foolish to the world because he debased himself and he went into something that the world just don't understand, which would be following into this truth. But that's what the Lord chooses. So ultimately he made the right decision, the ultimately right decision, because again, we go read it, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27. "But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise," right? And they're confounded because they believe that it made so much sense for him to go play in this league and be rich and famous. So the Lord confounds them, right, when these type of situations happen, because he always chooses those foolish things, right? The foolish things according to the world. You'll get our next scripture, which is Isaiah like Isaiah chapter 53, and we will hop to verse 10. And it reads, it says, "Yet it pleased the Lord, Yahweh, the Most High, to bruise him." Talking about Yahweh Shai. "He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord Yahweh, the Most High, shall prosper in his hand." So ultimately here this is saying that the Most High was pleased to bruise Yahweh Shai. And it's ultimately because he was pleased because Yahweh Shai, he chose what was according to the world. He chose to debase himself. He chose to take on the burdens of this world, and he was bruised because, he was beaten. He was put on a cross to save ultimately his people, the Israelites, to give them a chance of redemption with the Lord, with the Most High. So it pleased the Most High to bruise him because ultimately Yahweh Shai was in agreement with the Lord. He debased himself. He allowed himself to be treated, as dirt, as spittle. He was the most marred man, ever. He was beat as just a normal, everyday person, but yet this was the Messiah, He was sent on this earth. He was here healing people, bringing people from the dead, but he died, you know, as a man. So it pleased the Lord because Yahweh Shai chose to debase himself, to humble himself, and to do the Lord's will, the Most High's will. That was pleasing to the Lord in the eyes of the world. That was foolish. Even when he was on the cross, they was poking at him saying, "Why don't you bring yourself down? You're so powerful. You're the son of God. Why don't you bring yourself down?" But Yahweh Shai was in agreement with the Lord, and he understood that he wasn't here for his own purposes. And that pleases the Most High because he chose what was foolish, again, according to the world. The world looks at that as foolishness, but the Most High, he's pleased with that. Isaiah 53 and 11, it says, "He shall see the travail of his soul." That travail is that heavy labor, that hard work, right? It's just really heavy work, which again is a foolish thing in this earth. No one wants to work hard, right? This guy, he could have just went to the NFL and made $1 million in a few years, but instead he's going to, work his life out forever, endowed in his studies and in the scriptures. Ultimately, it's a harder path, and the world looks at that as foolishness and shall be satisfied by his knowledge. See, with that understanding satisfies the Most High, because the Lord chooses these foolish things. So, and shall be satisfied by his knowledge, shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. See, again, he's bearing all of these burdens and all of these things where he has to debase himself and be, so-called less than what he is, the Messiah. He has such a high image. He's healing people. He's bringing people back from the dead, but he had to die like a man. But ultimately, he was in agreement with the Most High, which, again, he chose those foolish things, which are, in the Most High's eyes, very acceptable. Again, we go to further this, we will go to Matthew chapter 10. And we will go to verse 38. Matthew chapter 10, verse 38. It says, "And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me." See, this is Yahweh Shai speaking. It's written in red. So this is Yahweh Shai speaking. And he says, "And he that taketh not his cross," right? He was promoting, he was preaching, telling people to take that debased mode, to take those low roads, to endure in the travail, right? Don't follow after the world. Don't be following these riches, Don't chase the riches. Don't chase the worldly fame, the success of the world, because it's to no avail. He was preaching to be lowly, to be humble, to be debased, right? And again, which the world looks at as foolishness. And this is exactly what Yahushua was telling people to do. He was telling people to be foolish according to the world, to ultimately agree with the Most High, because he understood that's what the Most High chooses. The low, the meek will inherit the earth. You know, those valleys going to be exalted. All right, but we're going to stay on page here and get our last scripture, which we'll wrap it up after this. So 1 Corinthians chapter 1. So if you we go get verse 18 though. And it's just going on to just prove Yahushua preaching, the cross. And we're just going to read it. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish, right? Them that perish, those people who have no idea what's going on. They have no understanding. They're of the world. Foolishness. See? For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness. Preaching that cross is foolishness to them. They don't want anything to do with taking on burdens of other people, debasing yourself. They're all about exalting themselves and chasing, the so-called American dreams, or whether it be money or fame or whatever. But unto us, which are saved, it is the power of God, the power of the Most High, right? And that's due to us understanding the scriptures. We know what's going on in the world. We know who we are. We know where we stand. And we understand that the foolish things of this world, are pleasing to the Most High, because that's what he chooses. He chooses the foolish things. And again, I'll read that last part. It says, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of the Most High, or God. We just go hop up to where we started. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. So, simply put, the God, he chooses the foolish things in this world. And, us taking, taking the route, if you will, that we've taken, debasing ourselves, humbling ourselves, being okay with not having it all right now, to ultimately, at the end, after all of our endurance and, sticking in his truth and standing with his word, we'll be rewarded 100-fold, 10-fold, more. Okay. So, that's it. I'm going to say, hopefully this lesson was edifying. And I'm going to say, Shalom.